enforce that, make sure you don't overstep another person's liberty. But it comes from a Christian-founded basis. So given that that isn't really how our country works anymore, how it's not so God-founded, would then a government, based on those similar principles but without the Christian restriction, be more effectual? Say a government which, I don't know, institutes gay rights. Would that actually be more effectual nowadays governing a people which doesn't have that Christian background? Because in that case, you're just allowing people to have their liberties. That doesn't overstep other liberties. It just is no longer confined by those Christian values.
Well, for one thing, I want to reject the idea that America is and should be driven by Christian-specific values. I think as far as what Christian values should we consider in the actions of the government, it's the golden rule. It's do to others, treat others like you want to be treated, and also, as much as it depends on you, live at peace with others. The rest, you find that in most, at least the first one, you find in most religions, and that's why the Federalist Paper quote said a moral and religious people, not a Christian people, because it's supposed to give people the freedom to practice their religion while saying, okay, if your religion says it only restricts religion as far as it protects the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness of others. Now, as you were saying in your question, you had, what would a government be more effectual in governing our current society if it provided, gay rights? And gay rights is a bit of a trigger word, and
That's the idea.
yes. So I'll narrow it down. I'll specify it a little bit. If the government acknowledged homosexual marriage as valid as equivalent to same-sex or to heterosexual marriage for its purposes, because that's a thing that people want to do these days, and that's a thing that culture has said is okay, and the government has to somewhat follow the culture in order to maintain respect from the people. So while I don't, as a Christian, I don't condone same-sex marriage, and I don't think it counts as holy matrimony for the Christian definition of marriage. I do think that the government's not supposed to be specifically Christian, and I don't think there's a lot of things that I think the government could be more permissive on, if it were to abandon the idea that it is supposed to be instituting, that it is a theocracy implemented through democracy. Did that answer your question at all?
For the most part, I don't blame you for not specifically.
Yeah, I kind of like to waffle around this issue. No, that question was what I was originally going to write this paper on, which is why I changed the topic.
Yes, that sort of answers it, and I'll spare you pressing incredibly further on that.
Okay. How much more time? Can I do
3 minutes.
Okay. Yes, Katrina.
Okay, so I have a question sort of relating to your answer saying that religion in general should be permissible. So I know that in the Roman Empire they did have a religion that was not Christianity, but it did eventually lead to its downfall. So what are your perspectives on that, the amount of freedom you have of following different religions other than Christianity within America, and what that would be?
I think that, if you're going to, I don't think the government is a should be a tool to command a specific religion. It should be a tool to command specific, you might say specific moral, or not even moral, just interpersonal interaction. You know, if the government, if all the government ever said on morals was treat others like you want to be treated, which that's hard to codify into law, but that simultaneously is I think the religion. You can't even call it a religion. It's just the belief, the heuristic even, that the government endorses. Beyond that, I don't see any reason for the government to say specific restrictions on religions. Besides, I mean, not to be discriminatory, but you know, extremist, terrorist, you know what? That's not even a restriction on religion per se. That's a restriction on specific. That's not a restriction on what you believe. That's a restriction on what you do, because what you're doing is completely infringing on other people, encroaching on other people. And so, when you're talking about, I don't think it's infringing on the freedom of religion to say you can't fly a plane into the World Trade Centers. And yeah. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shue.